Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and hey, it's the end of the year, so just finishing up Christmas. Hanukkah, of course, was earlier. So for those of you like that, it's great to have you with us. And so we're going to be doing this show live, and so it's awesome to have you with us and have you doing this show with us live. And And I'll be honest with you, we're doing something a little different because 'cause I'm actually on vacation this week, and so we're doing this remotely, and I'm using new equipment, and so we're gonna see how this goes, for us today. So, what do I wanna do today? Well, instead of having a guest, what I thought I would do these 2 shows. First, I wanna do 2 shows, the end of the year show, and then I wanna do the, um show next week, which is the beginning of the year, and I just want to do a couple things. One, both shows certainly are. You can ask your questions, and I'd love for you to type in your questions wherever you're watching me from. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you've got a coaching question, something I can answer, I'd be happy to help you work through whatever you're working through. If it's something I can't deal with or I don't deal with, I'll be completely honest about that too as well, because I don't, I'm not able to solve everything, and I'm completely honest with that. But the one thing I do want to talk about today is I want to talk about the holidays because I've written this on several social media occasions, different social media platforms that the holidays are not always great for everybody, and sometimes when the holidays come around, it tends to go one of two ways. Either you're extraordinarily excited or you're a little depressed. And there's probably no time where people feel either more connected or more lonely or alone than during the holidays. Uh, I think, one of the things when I look at relationships, and I even look at my own past relationships, one of the things I noticed is that I always wanted to have somebody around in the holidays. I did not want to be alone during the holidays. And I think that's true of a lot of people. And you may be one of them out there that's struggling with the holidays. And so if you're one of those people who are struggling, let's talk through some of this. Well, first of all, you know, the holidays are not easy because every holiday, I don't care what the holiday is. It seems that every holiday is about connecting with other people. And if you're somebody who is not well connected, or let's say you moved into a new city and you don't know very many people, the holidays can feel like one of the most loneliest, lonesome times that you'll ever have. And so, how do we work through that? Right? Well, that's a difficulty that we can work through. And let me tell you, maybe let's say, what should we not do? Okay. Well, probably one of the worst things to do is to quickly just get into any relationship that you can. That's not a good idea because oftentimes what people will do is they will get themselves into a relationship. And when they're in that relationship, they're just doing it because they don't want to be alone the holidays. And it's usually miserable. It's great. It feels great for a while, for a couple weeks, but then you realize I can't stand this other human being. And so you've gotten into this personal relationship that in fact has turned bad. So number one, that's the worst thing to do. The second worst thing to do is to um, isolate yourself so much that you're not moving anywhere. I mean, you do need to go outside of you. Don't stay in locked in, because what happens is the more we isolate, the more we isolate. It just seems to be a tendency. One of the most difficult things about being an entrepreneur and working on your own is the isolation, and you get used to the isolation. And I have to force myself to get out of my own isolation, because the more I isolate, the more I stay isolated. And I get comfortable in isolation, and we all have a tendency to do that. And when we get comfortable in isolation and we don't move, then that becomes a problem. So Isolation is one of the other things that you don't want to do is you don't want to be isolated. So what should we do? Give it a couple things that you don't want to do. Isolate. Don't want to get into an intimate relationship immediately. Well, here's some of the things you can do. All right. First of all, go to public gatherings. Right. There's a lot of things during the holidays where there's a lot of public gatherings. And what I'm talking about here is go to a concert. If they're doing a tree lighting ceremony, go to a tree lighting ceremony. If there's maybe there's something going on at your local church or synagogue that may be going on, get involved with some of those things where you can be around people. You don't have to be around relationships; just be around people. I remember when I was single. One of the best things that I recognized that when I was single was when I was connected to other people who were like me. Right? I wasn't looking for another relationship. I didn't want to get involved as much as I really probably wanted to. I didn't want to get into another relationship, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to be around other people, and being around other people is so important, especially during the holiday season, because it just makes things tremendously more easy for you, and it gives you an opportunity to find a way to connect. I think one of the other things that the holidays do when we're in the holidays is they just seem to put a spotlight on everything, right? We have a tendency, especially if we're alone during the holidays, we have a tendency to look at ourselves more in depth, especially when we're alone. There has a tendency that what we'll do is we will look so much at ourselves and evaluate ourselves, or will our self-talk will go down a wrong direction where we go, I'm alone, I'm miserable, I don't want to feel this way. And by the way, it's normal, but if you don't get a hold of it, it can have a number of other issues if you don't get a hold of your own holiday issues. Because the more you turn inward in your holiday issues, which by the way, self-awareness is great. We talk about a lot on this show, but if you start going down a path where you start spiraling down, then what happens is it's very difficult to get back up again. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this about us as human beings, but we can get negative really, really fast. So we never spiral up, by the way. We generally spiral down. We really have to pull ourselves up. We don't do well staying in the positive because we're so prone to the negative. Matter of fact, it's interesting to me that what happens is that we can get so focused on the negative that we can get there so quickly. I mean, think about this. You can get on any social media device, right? You get on a social media device and you could be scrolling through and there could be one negative thing, and that one negative thing can outweigh the hundreds of positive things that you just read on social media. Go to it seems that every browser now that you go on, if you're on your laptop or whatever, or your tablet, and they come up with the web news sites. What happens on the news sites? Well, the first thing that happens on the news sites is you're not getting anything positive. You're getting everything negative. That spirals you down. Go listen to any conversation that you have with your friends. What is the tone of the conversations that you have with your friends? Right? Is it gossip? Right? Which will bring you down. Because I mean, think about this with gossip, right? The thing about gossip is this: when people start talking about other people that are not in the room, by the way, that's gossip. When people are talking about other people that are not in the room, what happens is, and you need to keep aware of this, they're probably talking about you when you're not in the room. That's a fact. That and if you're not thinking that, right, then either you're part of the gossip or you're just really not aware of really what's going on. And you need to pay attention that if you're around people who are talking about other people who are not in the same room, then when you're not in the same room, they're probably talking about you, right? I mean, because I don't care what it is, talking about other people is gonna bring you down. You don't think it's affecting you. Everybody, I remember watching a Friends episode, and uh, Jen Aniston Jennifer Aniston plays a character, I can't remember her name now, and, they're talking about her gossip, and she says, "I don't gossip. I may have some information that other people don't know." Well, it's gossip. If you're talking about other people, it's gossip, and that can bring you down. So start taking a look at your conversations. By the way, what's your self-talk like during the holidays? One of the things that I wanna say during the holidays is oftentimes the reason why holidays can be so rough on people is because of their own self-talk. And what happens during their own self-talk is that people start becoming their own worst self-victims. And we know what self-victimization is, right? You know what I'm saying when it's talk self-victimization? Self-victimization is this. Let's say that you're feeling sorry for yourself. And here's the spiral. This is such self-talk. "Oh, you know what? I'm alone this Christmas, and I don't like it, and I hate it. What's wrong with me? There must be something really wrong with me." And then, "Oh, okay, you know what? I'm out of shape, or I'm overweight, or I'm just ugly, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough." And you start saying all these things to yourself. And then what happens is the more that you say these things to yourself, the more that you start believing these things. And by the way, I find it so interesting that we will have this kind of self-talk to ourselves, and we do it really, quite frankly, more so during the holiday season than we do probably throughout the year. Because again, the holiday season just puts a spotlight on whatever we do. So whatever we do, it just gets brighter, right? So we'll start saying these things, "Oh, I don't know why I'm so alone here at the holidays." Well, when you start doing that type of self-talk, you're spiraling down so fast because it's not like you go, "Oh, you know what? I'm ugly." And then you tell yourself, "No, no, you're not. You're handsome. You're beautiful. You're good looking. You're attractive." You don't do that. You stay there. And you stay mired and wallowing in your own self-deprecation. And it doesn't go work. And I've told my clients this, who do this from time to time, and I will tell you this directly. Listen to the words that you say about yourself, and then ask yourself this question. Would I say those same things to my best friend? And you know what the chances are? Chances are you would never say the things to your best friend that you say about yourself. Never. Never in a million years would you say the things that you say about yourself to your best friend. So now the challenge becomes, why aren't you your own best friend? That's the challenge. So during the holiday season, one of the things that we have to be very, very akin to is, what's our self-talk? By the way, self-talk is so powerful, and a lot of people don't realize how powerful their self-talk is. And I had to go through this myself, and this exercise of self-talk, because self-talk is is so huge. And like I said, the holidays just make it bigger. But I remember saying things to myself that were awful. Like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't smart enough, or I have all these degrees and yet I'm not smart enough. I can't, I'm talented but I'm a failure, and just stuff that made no sense whatsoever. And I kept telling myself these things, and I had such a hard time pulling myself out of it. And the reason why I had a difficult time pulling myself out of it is because I kept spiraling down. And then more I kept spiraling down, saying all these negative things about myself. And by the way, they would be things that I would never say in front of anybody else. They were things that I was saying to myself apart from anybody. And it was starting to cause depression. So how do you get yourself out of it? Well, I have a really simple trick to get yourself out of your negative self-talk. And the first thing that you do when you're in your negative self-talk is you need to have a gratitude plan. Okay, now this isn't like buying insurance. Okay, it's a gratitude plan. And here's a gratitude plan. Several years ago, I read this book by, of all people, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and I think the name of the book was like Business Success Secrets on the Bible or something like that. And I listened to this book, and he made a challenge, and the challenge was when you wake up in the morning, write down 5 to 10 things that you're grateful for, no matter what they are. And so I thought 7 was a pretty good number. So, and he said, get a notebook, put the date on it, and then write down, I'm grateful for, and then I go dot, dot, dot. And I start writing down my 7 things. And by the way, when I started doing this program, right? And then he said, do it for 30 days. And he said, watch what happens, watch how you change. And if I do something, I'm pretty committed about it. So I'll be really, really, really committed to it if I do something. So I bought a little notebook, had like 365 pages in it. Now I was only going to do this for 30 days, but it's hard to find a 30-day notebook. So I brought this 365 page notebook, and I would put the date on. First thing I wake up in the morning, put the date on, get a cup of coffee, and then I would go, I am grateful for dot, 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 and I would go number 1. And I can remember the first couple weeks really, were I'm grateful for my cup of coffee. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my dogs. I'm grateful that I have a place to live. I'm, grateful that I have a, pretty backyard. I'm grateful that I live in a warm place. I'm grateful that, I have a car to drive. I mean, all the things that you normally would think about being grateful for. And that was my first 2 weeks. And by the way, it seemed like every day I was just grateful for the same stuff. Nothing really changed. Which is, by the way, that's okay with this little process. All right. So I did that for 30 days. And most of the things that I were grateful for in those first 30 days was just stuff, with my wife and dogs thrown in. All right. But what happened after 30 days, or maybe right before 30 days, maybe around day 28, I started to realize I was changing. My attitude was different. And so then when I started writing down my gratitudes every morning when I first got up, I'd have my cup of coffee, and I would write down, instead of writing down, I'm grateful for my cup of coffee, it would be, I'm really grateful I'm not the same person I am. I'm really grateful that I'm a better person today than I was yesterday. I'm grateful that I really care about people. I'm grateful that I do have a lot of talents and abilities. I'm grateful that I want to use them to be better. I mean, there was this click that happened in my head that I went from being grateful for things and was grateful for who I was. I was grateful for the values that I had. I was grateful for the changes that were occurring. That habit turned from 30 days to 60 days to 6 months to a year, and it's been going on several years. And I still wake up every morning and there's 15 things I'm grateful for every morning. And I know that gratitude will change you and the way you talk to yourself because I'm no longer the same person. Years and years and years of telling myself how grateful for I am for how I was created and how I was made and how I make a difference and how I care and how I love and how I want to help and that people matter and I mean just all those things. And they started to become so clear to me that I recognized that because I was changing, I was becoming a better person, not just for me, but for my wife and my children and my friends. And I was being that better person. And that's pretty cool when you think about it. So gratitude will help change your negative self-talk. Hey, listen, let's do this. Let's do a commercial break real quick. By the way, it's live. So we are live here with you. My name is Coach Jay Izzo, and we're talking about getting through the holidays. I'm taking your questions. You can type in your questions online. I'll be happy to answer those. If you have any questions, coaching, life, business, whatever you want to ask, it's what I do. I'll be happy to address those on the air. So please feel free to do that. But let me just tell you about my two sponsors. One is Epic Physical Therapy. Listen, you could be in surgery. You got some issues going on, aches wise, pain wise. Maybe a professional athlete. You want to look and feel better. Look, the people at Epic Physical Therapy, they're amazing. I know I go there. And I can tell you this, it's not physical therapy in a box. They don't treat everybody exactly the same because of your injury. No, they look at you and they're going to customize the program for you. So when you're ready for your epic relief and your epic recovery, don't look any further. Just go to Epic Physical Therapy. It's epicpt.com. It's EPICPT.com. Linda Craft Team Realtors for more than 39 years, actually going on 39 years. You know what? They've been helping people transition in life. I know they're a real estate company, but the fact of the matter is every place you've ever lived has been a transition in life. I know it has. So that's the way it works, right? Listen, they know how to take the stress out of whether it's selling your home or buying your next home. They know how to take the stress out of it. So when you're ready to sell or buy your next home and you want to reduce your stress and you're ready to have a little bit easier of a transition, look at Linda Craft Team Realtors. That's lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction. My name is Coach Jay. And this is the coaching show where you get to ask your questions. You can just type them in wherever you're watching from, by the way. If you're watching, there's 3 Facebook channels. We're also on Instagram. We're on X, Twitch, YouTube. We're on all those shows and we're live here today. So if you've got a question, type it in. If I can help you, I'm going to do that. We're talking about getting through the holidays. It's not always easy to get through the holidays. And for some people it is. I mean, for some people, they love the holidays. I'll be really honest with you. I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year. I personally feel that at Christmas time, everybody's just a little lighter. I feel like people smile a little bit more. People are willing to be a little bit more forgiving. People are willing to not be in such a hurry, even though they want to get their gifts done and everything like that. So I love this time of year. In fact, I have a holiday tradition that I didn't do a very good job with this year in this tradition. But typically, I try to watch every single Scrooge movie out there. It drives my wife crazy. I love watching. My favorite one is from 1951, the colorized version of Alistair Sim. It is called Scrooge. If you get a chance to see it, it's awesome. I think it's the best one ever made, simply because it answers some questions that the other movies don't answer. It's really great. A friend of mine watched the 1938 version with Reginald Owen, which is very great, but it's also a little bit different in how they end it. And of course, Sir Cedric Hardwicke's version from 1935, which is classic 61-minute Scrooge, is fantastic. I don't know what your favorite Christmas movies are, but the Scrooge or A Christmas Carol absolutely my favorite movie to watch. Matter of fact, my wife and I watched Scrooged with Bill Murray, which I think is a great version of A Christmas Carol or Scrooge. I think it's fantastic to watch. It's a lot of fun, and we laughed while eating popcorn. So let's talk about a little bit more about holidays. We got New Year's coming up, and New Year's Eve can present itself a number of challenges for a number of people. I have friends that I know who don't consume alcohol. They don't drink. And by the way, if you don't drink, good for you. Okay, if you don't, good for you. And if you are drinking, I'm not judging you. I mean, listen, great. Some people just can't handle it, or some people can't do it. Personally, I don't, from just because uh, I want to stay in shape, and the alcohol just and my workout routine just doesn't work together. So there's no judgment here. I have no problem with people, you know, consuming responsibly. I have no problem with that. So I don't want you to hear that I'm against it. I'm not. It's just it's a choice that I made a few years ago not to, and um, and have stayed with that choice, and I just because I feel better. But there are some people who simply just can't because it's a problem. And I think this is one of the things about New Year's Eve over the course of years that probably bothers me more than anything else, and that is that New Year's Eve seems to be synonymous with drinking and over-consuming alcohol. And it was supposed to be a celebration of, you know what, we just came through 1 year and we're about to go into the next year. And I really hate it for people who don't consume alcohol. I hate it for them that they feel like they can't go out on New Year's Eve because they're either not going to be accepted or they're going to have alcohol pushed on them, and then I don't want to deal with that. And I get that. So they have to kind of create their own thing, and you know, I understand it, but it can be a problem for people. I just want everybody to kind of understand that it can be a problem for folks that New Year's is coming up, and it can be a problem when there are people more and more people are not drinking. By the way, there are so many non-alcoholic beverages available today than there have ever been. I don't know. I don't if you ever go to Total Wine. I don't know if you have a Total Wine store near you, but if you get to a Total Wine store, they sell so many non-alcoholic. By the way, there's non-alcoholic bourbon, there's non-alcoholic rum, there's non-alcoholic tequila, there's non-alcoholic wine, there's non-alcoholic champagne, and of course the non-alcoholic beers are endless now. I mean, that's become its own. Microbreweries are doing non-alcoholic, but we're seeing a real resurgence of the non-alcoholic industry. And by the way, I have to be completely transparent here as somebody who doesn't drink, it chooses not to, by the way, not for any other reason, just because I just don't want to. Uh, I have to tell you, some of it's pretty good. It's, I mean, some of it is pretty good. Some of it not so good. To be real honest with you, but some of it's pretty good, and you know what? It mixes well, and you can come up with a pretty creative, some pretty creative non-alcoholic cocktails that are really really excellent. So, um, listen, if I've had a lot of fun experimenting with the different non-alcoholic bourbons and the non-alcoholic whiskeys and those type of things. I've had a lot of fun experimenting with them. I'm not gonna tell you they're all good. They're not. Some of them are better than others. I mean, none of them taste exactly like bourbon. I'm gonna be just again, that's just honest. Some of them are closer than others. I'll put it that way. But I think the thing about New Year's is, you know, if you're somebody who consumes, again, which is okay, what I would like you to do is look out for those people who don't. And if you can, and if you would, make them feel a part without having to push the alcohol thing on them. Because I think, again, the holidays are about connecting with people. And when you have a group of people, whatever their reason for not consuming alcohol is, whatever their reason is, when you exclude them, because they want to celebrate just like everybody else. They want to wear the hats and the fun stuff, but it is very, very, very difficult on people. It is very, very difficult on them when they go to a bar, right? Where typically there's food going to be served and there's a band and something like that. And they want to go, but everybody's pushing alcohol on them, right? And they don't want to drink or they shouldn't drink. And that's the only way they can have fun because people have a tendency to stay away from it. Listen, stay away from them. I understand it as somebody who doesn't consume alcohol. I understand it because people. I don't know if it's because those of us who don't consume, if it's because we make people uncomfortable. Because I did drink some alcohol. I did. Now I didn't drink all the time. I didn't drink regularly. It was more of a the occasional weekend, and I'd be out. I just don't drink at all anymore. And I don't get invited to as many things as I used to anymore, simply and it's because I don't drink. Now, I don't care if people do or not, but I think it makes people feel uncomfortable. Now, I don't want to feel uncomfortable because, I mean, gosh, if you're enjoying it, enjoy it, right? And matter of fact, as I tell my friends, why not keep me around? Because if you should, you know, you shouldn't be drinking and driving. So let me drive you home because I don't drink. And so, but it really is true. People can stay away from people who don't drink, and those people wind up alone a lot on the holidays because alcohol can be a separator. I know that you don't. I know that. I know that most people don't think about it, and I don't think anybody's trying to be that way. All right, so hear me really clearly on this. I don't think anyone is trying to exclude anybody. I don't think anybody's intentionally going, "Oh my gosh, he doesn't or she doesn't drink. I don't want to be around them." I don't think anybody's doing that. I think it's because they're hanging around people who do consume alcohol. And so what happens is people who don't, they just they just get ignored. Again, I don't think it's intentional. I don't think it's purposeful. I don't think it's hurtful on any level. I don't think that's anybody's intention. I think it's simply because uh, they get caught up into who they're hanging out with, and they're all doing the same thing. And by the way, that's human behavior, right? So I would just say to you, at least invite, even if your friends don't go with you, who don't consume alcohol, would you at least invite them? At least say to them, "Hey, listen, I know you don't drink. It's cool, but hey, we're going to this party. Would you want to join us?" Right? Okay, let them at least have the option, right? But the last thing that we want to do is we don't want to have another reason why we're not connecting with people, right? I would say this to you too about connecting with people. If you're somebody who enjoys the holidays, like I do enjoy the holidays, but there are people who don't. Do me a favor and look around your own friend circles and find those friends who don't have family, who are who tend to shut themselves in and really work on trying to pull them out with you to do something. To me, one of the things I'm trying to be more conscious of more now than ever before is look at my friends, who are the ones that are the most lonely, and then what can I do to pull them with me to have a better and more enjoyable experience? Because folks, as human beings, we were meant to connect with each other. We're not meant to be, as I talked about before, we're not meant to be in isolation, and isolation can become an addiction because the more we isolate, the more we isolate, and we don't want to socialize. And so, if you're somebody who's out there socializing, take a look. You know, who can you pull with you to take out with you that may not ordinarily go, and then take them, make them a part. Is there somebody new in your office? Maybe this would be a good time because it's easier on the holidays to invite people to things. And then don't just bring them and then drop them off at the door and go, okay, I'm going to go visit with my friends. No, 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 no. Make them a part of whatever you're doing. I think I think that's the thing that we have to do as human beings is we're not being intentional enough about helping people connect with other people because some people it's just difficult for them to do. I'm going to be listen, I have never ever met a stranger in my life. It drives my wife crazy. I can be in an elevator in a foreign country, which I was, and I'm talking to everybody on the elevator. I don't even know who they are, but I will make you laugh. I will make everybody laugh in that elevator at some point because it's how I roll. It's who I am. I have that personality because I want everybody to feel a part. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. So if I have to be the butt end of a joke so that people feel comfortable, I'm more than happy to be the butt end of a joke. It's just not a problem for me. But that's not everybody. I don't even know if it's most people. So what I would say to you is for those people who are like me, when you see people who are not apt to want to go out, when you see and people who are new and don't know anyone, don't just just bring them with you, but then don't just bring them through the door. Really be a part of their lives. Listen, can I tell you something? Your friends, your really good friends that you want to hang out with, they're still going to be there. You have a person who does not have friends of their own, or they've not met a lot of people, or they're uncomfortable meeting a lot of people. And here you have the skill of being able to introduce them to a bunch of people. You can now go ahead and do that for them so that they can be part of other people's lives too. And and here's the most beautiful thing that I found is that sometimes I will be with somebody and I'll bring them in. I'm introducing them to people, right? That they would not ordinarily introduce themselves. I introduce them, and then all of a sudden they start talking to somebody, and it's a conversation, and they connect. And then the next thing I know, they connect with another person. And then guess what? They don't need me around anymore. They've automatically found their friends. And now they're connected, and the next thing I know, they're exchanging phone numbers on their phone. They're exchanging business cards, whatever they're doing, right? And then it's a beautiful thing. But it doesn't happen if we don't take initiative to do that. And I think the holidays is one of those things that we just need to pay attention to as well. We're going to take another quick break here, and we're going to be taking another commercial break. When we come back, we'll do the last segment of the show. And again, if you want to write in your questions, feel free to write in your questions. I'm happy to do that. And we're going to talk about some other topics related to the holidays. You're watching me, Coach Jay, on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Epic Physical Therapy, my physical therapist. I would love it if they were yours too. You know what? They have the most top of the line advanced equipment when it comes to physical therapy. They do things like, my favorite is the Game Ready, which is ice and compression, but they do things like cupping and dry needling. It's just a few things. They are certified in the most comprehensive techniques and strategies. Listen, when you're looking for your epic relief and epic recovery, don't look any further. Go to Epic Physical Therapy. It's epicpt.com. It's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft Team Realtors. Now, they are in the Research Triangle Park. If you're listening, wherever you're listening, right? If you're watching us on DBTV, thanks for watching us all over the world. If you're listening to us by podcast, thank you again for listening to us all over the world. If you're watching us live, which I can see some of you are, thank you for watching. Here's the thing, though. They're in the Research Triangle Park, but they've been helping people all over the world. And the reason why they help people all over the world is because they're unaffiliated with any national brand. They are their own company. So because they're their own company, they're able to make connections with the best real estate professional in your area, regardless of the company, because they're not affiliated. So they're not trying to affiliate you with the company that they're part of. They're affiliating with who's the absolute best. So when you want the absolute best real estate professional in your area and you want to know, well, who would that be? Start with Linda Craft Team Realtors, and she will find the absolute best real estate professional for you in your area. And it doesn't matter what the company is. She's just, because she's unaffiliated. So listing, selling, buying, start with Linda Craft Team Realtors. It's lindacraft.com. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction, our last segment, and it is the end of the year show. And we're doing something a little different. I'm talking about getting through the holidays, and been talking about some things, self-talk, inviting others, being intentional about doing that. I want to finish this last segment, but just talking about the end of the year. This is a good time for us to do a lot of reflection on from the beginning of last year to the end. I mean, we probably all had some sort of goals that we thought we might achieve, and perhaps we achieved some of them. Chances are, though, if you're like 96% of the people in the world, you didn't. There's only about 4%. Based on recent research I've looked at, is like only 4% of the people actually ever make their goals. It's ridiculously low. And I'm not against goal setting. In fact, when I was in grad school at Washington State University, we actually did some work in goal setting in the Human Behavior Lab. But and you're going to have people who are going to say a whole bunch of things. I'm just going to give you the research that I've found, that I know in the last several decades or few decades, when it comes to setting goals. And we're going to talk about goal setting next week, by the way, and just it is part of the show. But here's something I'm going to tell you about goal setting. I'm not a big believer in it, simply because we're not doing it right. And I don't believe that if you're going to do things right, that you do it just to do it because everybody says to do it. I think that's a waste of time and energy. And if you're a business, I don't care how big or how small, and you're requiring your people to set goals, but you are not doing something on a weekly basis to follow up with them on their goals, you're wasting your time. You're just wasting your time. Because what makes goal setting really, really work is when people are in regular contact with another person who can keep them on track with their goals. That should be on a daily basis, but at least on a weekly basis. Not quarterly, not monthly, weekly. Why do I say that? Because here's what we find out. Your goals, in order for your people to be successful, it needs to be kind of like a thermostat in your house. And I want you to think about this. Let's say you want the temperature to be 72 degrees. So you set the thermostat to get to 72. But you got to wait 30 days before it ever gets there, maybe. Does that work for you? Or you set the temperature to 72, but you're going to wait for 3 months before the temperature actually changes. See, you have to think about goals as this thermostat that if you do not stay on top of it regularly where you're working on it, it just doesn't work. And you'll have people say, "Well, write them down." Well, writing them down, that's really not the answer. I mean, yes, you should write them down. I'm not saying that you shouldn't because, I mean, who's gonna remember all their goals if you don't write them down? I mean, it just makes sense to write them down. You're not setting a goal if they're not written down, okay? So, throw that out. That's just something you should do. It doesn't mean that you're gonna be any more successful. It's something you should do because people who aren't writing them down aren't setting goals. That's not goal setting, right? And then you have people who say, "Oh, set SMART goals, and they should be specific and measurable," and I gotta be honest with you, no. I mean, it's a great idea to do goals that way. What makes goals work is if you regularly have someone holding you accountable to those goals on at least a weekly basis. I'm going to give you an example. So, and this is the other problem why goals don't work. The reason why your goals don't work also is because you don't break them down into what you need to do every single day in order to achieve the goal. We make these huge goals and we go, okay. And let's say you're in sales, okay? Because it's an easy thing for me to do. If you're not in sales, hopefully that you get the understanding what I'm trying to say here. But let's say you're in sales and you want to sell 24 widgets a year. 24 widgets a year. That means you got to sell an average of 2 widgets a month. Okay? Now, what does it take to sell 2 widgets a month? And some of you go, I don't know. Well, then that's a problem. Then setting a goal for 24 a year doesn't make any sense because you don't even know how to sell 2 widgets a month. So why are you setting a goal for 24 if you don't know what it takes to do that? Now, if you can say it's 2 a month, well, what do I need to do? Well, I need to contact X number of people. Let's say it's 100, just to make it easy. So I need to contact 100 people a month to sell 2 widgets. Okay? So how are you going to do that? It's 30 days in a month. That's okay. If we say that there's 4 weeks, and we say that we're working 5 days a week, that's 20 days. I got to talk with 5 people a day for 20 days. That's my 100. And if I do that, I should sell 2 widgets a month. A little bit of problem with the math. Because if you think about it, how long does it take to process before you get to sell 2 widgets? So maybe, it takes 30 days to sell. By the time you do the contracts and everything else, maybe it takes 30 days to sell even 1 widget. Well, you're going to have to be contacting more than 100 people in a month. You see, we don't think through, get it down to its small level. And I will tell you where I learned this. It's so cool. I was in graduate school at Washington State University. And years ago, in preparation for the Olympics, Summer Olympic Games, there were these 2 guys, Dan and Dave. And they were vying for one spot as the decathlete representing the USA. And Dan happened to train at Washington State University. And I would go after class and I would sit there and watch him train, whether he was throwing the shot put or the discus or pole vaulting or sprinting, whatever it was that he was doing. And I was fascinated how they broke down, this is what he had to do in order to make it. These were the times he needed to be successful in the Olympics, right? But they broke it down by day. So he had to throw like maybe a quarter of an inch further today, or an eighth or a 16th, whatever it was. He had to throw a little bit further, right? And it was so amazing to me that every day they had goals that were set to where he was supposed to be at the end of 30 days, at the end of 60 days, until he got to the Olympic trials. Now, he ended up losing in the Olympic trials, not because he couldn't meet his goal, because he tried to make a jump in the pole vault that was way high. And instead of taking a lower height, he got scratched. And of course, that ended it, because if you take a scratch, you're not going to win in 10 events. But it was fascinating to me. And I realized at that time that the reason why we don't do well with goals is because we have not broken them down into small enough steps. And then we don't have somebody like a coach who holds you accountable on a regular basis, right? And it needs to be weekly, or somebody can hold you accountable weekly basis going, what are you doing today? What did you do today, yesterday, next day, next day, next day? What did you do for the last 5 days? Because how we get there is when we break it down into smaller. And when you break it down into smaller increments, and then you have somebody like, because Dan had a coach, he had several coaches, by the way. It wasn't just one coach, he had several coaches that specialized in different events. And it was those coaches who were holding him accountable for each of those events, for what he was going to do, how was he going to train to get him to the Olympic trial. If we apply the same logic to whatever goals we must set, whether it's personal or business, we would be so successful at goal setting. But we don't, because what we do is maybe we review your goals. Maybe. I got to be honest with you. In all the businesses I've ever coached, I don't even know. I've rarely seen 4 times a year. Occasionally I'll see twice a year. But usually what I see is you set them and then we'll evaluate how you did at the end of the year. It's not going to work. You're setting your employees up for failure. You could be, if you're in charge of this goal setting thing, you are doing your company a huge disservice by not making some sort of an accountability program where you're checking in weekly with your people to do what they're doing with their goals. You've got to think thermostat on that, because that's the only way it's going to work. You will increase. And by the way, I want you to think about this. Whoever's in charge of this, CEO, CFO, well, it's not CFO, COO maybe. I don't know, chief operating officer, maybe, or maybe it's somebody in HR. I don't know who's in charge. But who is ever in charge of your company for goals, I want you to think that if you would spend that extra time making sure every week that your people fit the goals and they actually did them, what would happen to your profitability? But they're really not important. That's the other part of the problem. They're not as important as we want to claim that they are. So my advice to you is, if you're going to set goals, then make sure that you have, weekly accountability, because that's really the best way to do it. We're getting here to the end of the show. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for everybody who's joining me out there. I really appreciate you. I value you. You had a lot of choices. You chose staying some time with me. Next week, I'm going to be back. We are going to talk about goal setting, and we're also going to talk about who are you? I'm working on a new talk and a new book, but we're going to talk about who are you really. So as I say to you every week, you know what this is. You know what? You're in charge. You're in control of 3 things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. I know things are difficult, and this time of year can be tough, but you are in control of your attitude. You may have things happen to you, but you can choose how you feel about it. Your control of your effort, that's your excellence, and you are in control of your resiliency. If you get knocked down, it's up to you to get back up. Be back next week with another. Well, it's going to be me. And I think it's gonna be a great show. Hey, and also bring in your questions next week. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that is? Ciao, everybody.